Hi everybody, this is Mary and welcome to Super Skills for Grownups Letter F edition. Our next session with the kids will be talking about the letter F, how to form it, and our word of the week that starts with F is going to be frog. We'll be reading a story about a frog and doing an activity with eyedroppers, food coloring, and coffee filters. So before I explain the activity, I'd like to talk about the book a little bit. Our book is going to be A Frog in the Bog by Carmel Wilson, and it's illustrated by Joan Rankin. And in this book, there's a frog on a half-sunk log in the middle of a bog, and he eats a bunch of insects. He eats a tick and 2 fleas and 3 flies, and then just goes from there to eat a lot of other bugs. And after he eats all these bugs, he's got a surprising consequence. So this type of book, where there's one day he eats the 1 tick, the next day he eats 2 fleas, etc., is predictable because it's got actions that are sort of a variation on a theme. The same action takes place with a little bit of difference each time it happens. It's got a predictable storyline, except for a nice twist at the end. And there's language that repeats too on the pages. So this makes it what's called a predictable storybook or a repetitive storybook. And young children tend to really enjoy these because the predictable aspect of it invites them to participate in the story. They can see what's coming and they can join in. Lots of times in books like these, after you're several pages in, or certainly after when you're rereading it, children can join in and repeat the phrase that repeats along with you if you're reading it to them. It's great because it helps them to recognize patterns and to anticipate what's coming next in the story. Both of those things are really good pre-reading skills. So these books are good for kids, and they also tend to be really enjoyed by kids. There's a lot of different variations on this theme, surprisingly enough. These books, the best books of these tend to have a little twist after all these repeated steps. There's a little surprise at the end. Another one I like is called Hooray for Today by Brian Wan. It's about a little owl who, like all owls, is up all night, and she wants to play, so she goes to visit her friends, bringing some toys along with her. And she sees a bunch of different animals. She goes from their animal house to animal house, and she says, "Hooray for today." Tuck says, "I've got my hat," or whatever other toy she has with her. "Would you like to play?" And sadly, because it's nighttime, the animals all say, "Not now, I'm sleepy." So this repeats throughout the book with variations, and by the end of the book, there's a little switch because there's a change in who's too sleepy and who's ready to play. Okay. And my last example of a predictable book is The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle, which you probably know about, but which is just a great example of a book that does a lot in relatively few images and few words. So this is a little caterpillar who's very, very hungry, and on Monday, he eats an apple. He's still hungry. On Tuesday, he eats 2 pears. Still hungry. On Wednesday, he eats 3 plums, etc., as each day of the week goes by. So this is a great book. You can talk about colors. You can talk about counting. You can talk about the days of the week. There's a lot of learning that can happen with just a few images. And we see that finally, on Saturday, the caterpillar resorts to a bunch of junk food. But what he really needs, he needs to eat a leaf. That's what he's supposed to eat. And after he does so, and after he rests a while in his cocoon, we see what happens to him. So this is a great book for young children. It's got repetitive elements that function to teach in an entertaining way. So that's the deal with predictable books, at least certain types of them. So for our activity, we're going to be using a medicine dropper or an eyedropper, whatever you have around the house, with a little bulb that they can squeeze. The reason that this kind of activity is good for kids, like so many of the other activities we've concentrated on, it's practice for them in isolating those 3 executive digits, thumb and the first 2 fingers do all the work here, and in tucking away these unneeded ulnar digits into the palm. So it's good practice. This is exactly what they're going to be doing when they hold a pencil. It's also strengthening because as they squeeze this bulb, they're working on the muscles in these fingers. So it's really good activity for children as a pre-writing activity for them to help them get the skills and the strength to hold a pencil and write someday. We're going to talk about doing an activity with coffee filter, or we can use regular paper as a variation on that, and I'll show you how. What you'll need is some kind of dropper, coffee filter, or kind of a hard surface construction paper will work too. Food coloring. I used an ice cube tray to put the different colors in. Scissors, because you're gonna trim this to be like a flower, which is another F word, and some paper towels to soak up some of the excess. So this is the activity we'll do today, but there are lots of other dropper activities you can do at home. You can work with your kids to fine motor. They can drop at a target, if you want to make a little target for them, or if you want to have them drop in cups. There are a couple of little STEM activities that they can do. They can do some color mixing by drawing up different colors into it and mixing it with other colors in other paper cups or in the ice cube tray. And another little STEM activity is to have an ice cube on a plate and then have a little bit of warm water your child can draw up and drip on the ice cube and see what happens and learn about the changes in the states of matter of water when different temperatures are applied. So those are just some additional, and kids just love to play with these anyway. Just put down some paper towels and get some different colors out, and they will enjoy just squeezing out the colors and seeing what happens on the paper towels. The other thing that makes it easier to do this activity is a sprayer, and that also is kind of good strengthening exercise for kids to use a water sprayer, because these work better if you soak them, spray them with water ahead of time. So okay, we are going to talk about that. I'll show you exactly how to do it in just a second. Okay, so if you have filter paper, this is number 4, I think. It doesn't matter what size. This is for coffee filters. Or if you have the flat bottom ones, that's fine too. You can just flatten them out. If you don't have coffee filters, please feel free to use what this is. I just cut a circle in kind of a slightly harder construction paper. So to do this activity, this is what I ended up with when I did my trial run. This was with the coffee filter, and this is with just the construction paper. I think they should have done them a little bit darker. So this is my water with food coloring in it. I just use standard grocery store food coloring. If you have liquid watercolors, that works great too. I put a tablespoon of water in each of these, and for my very pastel looking ones, I use 2 drops of food coloring in each color. For a more vivid, what I tried for this iteration is using about 5 drops, so those should be a little bit brighter. What I do with the coffee filters is fold them into thirds with this size. It really doesn't matter however you want to fold them. And then you can fold them again if you want, depending on what kind of a flower you want to cut. And then you can either freestyle cut, or if you want to draw a line for your child to cut, you can do that. And then just cut kind of a petal shape down from one side to the other, like that. Then when you unfold it, you'll have petal sizes. And you can really do any kind of cuts you want. There's a lot of variations on this. With these I did about the same size, I guess, but you can make them smaller or you can make them larger. If you have just a disc of paper that you've cut, I would fold it in half And then what I did was fold it in thirds, although you can also just fold them in half and half again. Doesn't really matter. So I'm going to do this then. I'm going to fold it again at the end. Okay, and I'm going to do this more of a petal that reaches up towards the middle. Okay, and there goes all my little scraps flying all over. And let's see how this one looks. Okay, so this looks more like this. So however you want, they're all going to be floral shaped. And then I have lined a tray. This is a jelly roll pan. This is a half sheet cake pan. And I am going to put my unfolded construction paper and my unfolded, but still doubled up because that's how it's shaped, coffee filter like this. And they've got paper towels behind them because there's going to be a lot of water pooling. Then I'm going to let your child. So your child can cut these. You can maybe help them fold them. If they seem like they're able to cut, it's fairly thick. You can have them cut it. If not, you can just cut it for the flowers. The main activity here is going to be the eyedropper and maybe the water sprayer. This is good exercise for them too. This strengthens this first finger, and which is gonna be pressing down on this trigger here. Okay, so then we're gonna spray because the water helps the paint spread throughout the paper. It's going to look a little different on the paper from what it does on the filter. Okay, so you really want to get that, let your child go crazy and just spray away. You want that to be pretty saturated. Okay, now, like I said, I have a tablespoon of water in each of these ice cube trays, and I've put yellow, green, red, and blue food coloring in. I heavied up on it this time because I thought last time turned out a little light. And I also put some extra water in here, just in another ice cube partition, because that will be a good way to rinse out the droppers so the colors don't mix. So your child can go ahead and draw up some colored water. We're going to do some yellow. And I might as well do this one as well. And they're going to look a little different, like I said, because there's the paper absorbs in different rates. Okay, so I'm going to rinse this out, and your child will have fun doing that too. And then squirt it out in another one. Okay, so that looks pretty clean now. I'm going to try some red now. Okay. And as I noted, your children will really just enjoy, even if you just use paper towels and don't try to make a flower or any particular shape, just squirting this is something that young kids get a kick out of, and it's good for them. So, just gonna go with some more colors. And it doesn't, as you see on the regular paper, it doesn't spread quite as readily. Okay, and I guess I still have to do green. It has a little more of a tie-dyed look on the filter. And if you use paper towels, it will also spread like this and get more tenderly and tie-dyed looking. Okay, so that should soak through to the other side as well, because the papers have been soaked. So all you need to do then is just leave it on the paper towel until it dries. This will be a few hours probably. It may be something you want to take up again the following day. And then after that, you'll be able to make these, give them stems, either a flat stem as a picture, or you can crunch them up and put a pipe cleaner stem on them. Hopefully this will be fun for your child, and it's great fine motor practice and dexterity and strength training. Okay, back to how to make the stems. Okay, so now that we've seen how to do the eyedropper activity, these are the first ones I did. This is the one with the water, kind of a water lily cut on it, and it's pretty pastel because I didn't use probably as much food coloring as I should have. This is the one that I used just sort of the slightly hard finish construction paper on. So after you have those and they've dried, because they need to dry at least, till they're dry, a couple hours or maybe even overnight. With the coffee filter one, if you want to open it up and kind of scrunch the bottom together, have your child do that, work with your child to do that. Then if you have pipe cleaners, if you don't, you could probably use a little piece of wire, floral wire or whatever you have. You can just wrap that around the scrunched part at the bottom. Or again, like I said, if you want to hold it and have your child wrap it. And then you've got a stem and kind of a little, sort of looks like a little water lily. And there's lots of different cuts you can make that'll give the flower a different appearance. If you've done one with construction paper, if you make it, this is not a very big one. I really should have made it bigger. If you make it larger, you will also be able to scrunch it and do the same thing, tie it at the bottom. You could even possibly do it with this one. It doesn't have a lot to grab onto here. So if you decide you want to scrunch it together, you should probably make it bigger. This is about 5 inches across. I would make it larger. If you don't want to do that, you can always just make a little background, have your child help you cut, and use a glue stick to attach a stem and some leaves, and then just have your child get some gluing practice, gluing the flower on, and if you want to cut out a middle for the flower, and just use it that way, okay? But either way, we've done something that's good for their fine motor skills and something that hopefully they'll enjoy and end up with something that they think is pretty, right? Thanks very much. We'll see you next time and have a great day.